Alright, hello everybody, welcome to Historian Stitch. Today is a Tuesday, and typically on Tuesdays haven't done one in a while, but I try to do tune-up Tuesdays of I sit down and either read or relearn something or just learn something new altogether. But today, rather than all of that, sometimes tuning up on something is just sitting down and thinking for a while and remembering why you do certain things the way you do and why it's important, and yeah. Along with a Tune-Up Tuesday, we are also doing our How To Wednesday just all in one. So there will not be a video tomorrow or probably next week either, but we'll see what happens, because I'm trying to do a how to dress for a ball how-to. Didn't work very well the first time I recorded it, so we're going to do that one again. And then probably rag curls and how to actually do them after that, because thank you to one of our commenters on how to do hair, who pointed out that my title for one of them was a bit misleading, and I didn't actually explain how to do rag curls proper, so fix that, and I will be doing a video specifically on how to do rag curls later. But today, part of the Tune-Up Tuesday is thinking about why I even went down the path of studying Victorian grief and mourning. And the main reason is because of a friend who I was taking a Civil War themed class with at Shepherd University, who, we were going over the good death and all of that, and he asked why they went to all that trouble if they were so used to death. What even was the point of it, and did you even really care if, your child died? And that hit really hard at the time, because I'm sitting there going, yes, they cared. They were given opium. Women were taking opium to deal with their grief about losing their children while being expected to have more children. And just that whole kind of conversation that happened in that classroom led to my capstone that leads to what I'm doing now, of sitting down and making the dresses, or recreating some of the dresses, and looking at it and going, how many, you start thinking about why it was made the way it was, and who made it for which death in the family, and why. Did the trim have meaning while you're sitting there putting it together for yourself to wear? And along those same lines comes what I'm working on today of wreaths. Wreaths, of course, are used all over the place for Christmas and various holidays. But in the Victorian era, they're also used as symbols of grief. And while sitting and working on the base of this, which is grapevine, wild grape, sitting down and working on this, it let my mind wander, and I was allowed to just kind of sit calmly by myself and create something while contemplating life at the same time. And I feel like that's part of why mourning wreaths were a thing, of you could sit down and just focus on what happened in the family and who it was and why you're going to miss them and all of that in the process of creating something to remember them by. And I feel like that's a lot of why Victorians did what they did, of just that memory that is so very important to them, of how you're remembered and what you do to preserve that memory. This is a big part of it, I'm pretty sure. But for your Victorian era mourning wreath, the main things that you are decorating with are boxwood, laurel, or rhododendron is what a lot of people call it, but through here we call it mountain laurel because it just grows wild like weed, as well as it's a specific kind of pine where the leaves kind of droop rather than standing out straight. It's one of the evergreens. And these are all signifiers of death, and usually you're going to find them in cemeteries, so when you're making one, the reason you'd probably have it is from going and clearing the grave site, or however many family members had passed away, all of their grave sites, because originally it was the family's job to do that, not caretakers. But you'd be taking these, you've put them all together, and you would hang it on your door, and people would know death has come to that family in that household. Same reason they are putting crepe and all on, like, above the doors and stuff. But yeah, basically to make this part, giant weaving together of, you start out with a simple just ring, and then wrap more and more grapevine all around it. I didn't use too terribly much, but I also left it super loose. I left it really loose, that way I can go through and put not that big of pieces, but pieces in between, that way it won't fall out. And the kind of nice thing about grapevine is once you have it together, you're not tying or gluing things to it, so you can take off all of the greenery for whatever purpose you were making it, put new in, and you have a fresh wreath rather than having to throw the entire thing away repeatedly. But you're going to pick a direction that you're going around. I'm going to go clockwise with this. And you take your pieces, down just a bit, and you want them to overlap. That way you can't see any of that grapevine underneath. And if I happen to have any holes that are too terribly big, that is where the laurel comes into play. Because with that, I can go in and I can fill in those chunks that aren't behaving. In some cases, if you have smaller branches, you can take 3 or 4 of them, still weaving them into your bits. But to take your time and actually do this and think about why you're doing it, I feel like it would make the grieving process go a little bit faster, because in today's society it's oh, the person died, okay, get over it, rather than taking the time to actually mourn and remember who they were and why they were important to you. At some point, it's kind of like in the making of houses, at some point we screwed up royally and forgot the reasons behind some of these things. And a lot of people look at it, when I talk about it, especially at work, and go, we don't do that anymore. It's just kind of weird and you shouldn't do it. But to actually, granted, I know the whole process at a far more intimate level than most people, but everyone thinks that we got away from this, and we didn't really. We still perform the same things that typical Victorians did for their own funerals without thinking about it. Like, nobody contemplates why on, like, funeral flowers. My problem with doing these things and talking about it so often, I kind of desensitized to it, of it's not that dark of a process to me anymore. There's purpose behind it and a showing of how much you cared about somebody. That a lot of people who come into, like, Frontier and we talk about these things, they look at me and go, that's a really dark topic for somebody to know that much about. And I sit there and I look at them and go, it's not really that dark. And then you sit and think about it after whoever it is leaves and go, well, actually, yeah, it's kind of a dark topic, but it's one that we need to talk about, and it's a good connection to that past, because we really don't think about how much of it we still do. Should probably add some to the actual sides, because at this point it looks fine from the very front, but the top and the sides kind of need a bit of green themselves. And I've still got plenty of green over here, so I'm going to add those to the edges. But before I go through and do that, that way this video isn't too terribly long, I'm going to take some of my laurel. I need to cut these pieces off, not just break them, otherwise this isn't going to work. And again, just kind of weave it into this. And of course, as I talked about in one of my past videos about mourning, you're going to have a ribbon of some sort along with the wreath. Typically a black and or white one, depending on if it was a child or an adult who passed away from the family, because those colorations are super important. Stop setting that in weird places. One problem with the grapevine, it will wrap around everything. But there it is. With some of them, you would probably find flowers attached that have very specific meanings too. But that's the general gist of how to do it. A lot of it is honestly just kind of trial and error kind of stuff, but definitely an interesting thing to do and be sitting and contemplating who did it, why, and how, it's like what we do today that's similar in the same processes. So, that is my thing for today and tomorrow. If y'all have any questions, as always, please ask them. Also, any suggestions, always welcome. And this will be going on not just YouTube, but the Facebook page as well, and some variation of it on Instagram. Probably should be. Really need to work more on that one. But yeah, with that, I will see y'all next time. Bye.